All right, hey everybody. JMac here, another live stream. As you probably found me on Twitter, a client had reached out. They had a smaller budget, a limited budget, I should say. And after some back and forth, I said, okay, hey, I'll do this human shift, even though it takes a little more time than this typically. I'll do it. I'll throw in some extra hours if you let me live stream it. Because last time we live streamed this with one of my older projects, it was my project, I got permission for that, but it was one I worked on, and so I was a little more familiar with it. But this project, not familiar with whatsoever, so I thought it'd be another good candidate to kind of demo Shift, using Shift, prepping a project to run Shift, especially because it's a little bit older. It's running Laravel 5.8, and it has a lot, too many packages. So let's start taking a look, shall we? So here is the project. Haven't done anything yet. So I think this stream I want to take 20 minutes or so and focus in on what I do to kind of set up running these shifts, and then of course start running the shifts themselves. So the first thing I want to do is, of course, let's check out this project. So let's do a git clone. Let's pull that down in the background. And I think Project X was the one I was working on in a previous live stream. So there's some little tricky things I do, which I'll share. As the creator of Shift, I know how to kind of get the most automation out of Shift. Now, I don't necessarily recommend this for everyone. I'll talk through it here in a second. But anyways, now that this is pulled down, let's do a CD into this color elephant or whatever that is. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to check out a separate branch. I want to cut my own branch. Now Shift will create its own branches every time you want to shift, but these source branches is what you're going to be merging into, in this case, dev. I don't want to do that. This is 5.8. I'm going to be running shifts all the way up to 11. So I want to check out, just create kind of an in-between branch. So I want to do a git checkout -b Laravel -upgrade. This is just what I call it. You can call it whatever you want, going to 11 or whatever. But I'm going to check this out and go ahead and push this up. -u origin head. All right, cool. So everything's set up. It's there to track. Now everything's here. One more thing, two more things I want to do before we actually start kind of running the shift. First, I'm going to go ahead and run Pint. This is going to kind of normalize the code style. Shift does respect any code styles, modern code styles that are within the project. So if you're running PHP CS Fixer or PHP Code Standard or Code Sniffer, or of course Pint, it will use any custom configuration file you have. In the absence of that, it will simply just run Pint, which, as we can see, is going to have a lot of changes here for this particular project, because that may or may not be what they're using. Now, again, I asked the client, are you cool if I normalize the code style? They said yes. So I'm just going to do this here because it's going to reduce the noise along the way for the shifts. Ideally, to help in an eventual merge, if you were going to run these shifts over the course of a couple weeks, let's say, you might want to do this on your source branch first. Again, that's going to just help any merge conflicts from these lots and lots of style changes that are happening in the background here. So again, you can do it before you cut the Laravel upgrade branch or after, because hopefully this is going to get merged, and I know that the client has a bit of a code freeze right now. I'm just going to do all the work on my branch, my Laravel upgrade branch. Okay, one more thing while that's in the background. I'm going to cut a new terminal here. Let's go into Project X, and I think I have this shift RC file. I do. Okay, I talked about this in the previous live stream. Let me just get, let's get the location of this real quick. I'm going to go back to that other window. So let's D that out. Oh, this is still running. Anyway, that file, I'll cat it back out here in a second. That shift RC file is a configuration file for Shift. Runtime configuration, shift RC. It's kind of an old school little configuration file format. but it uses, it allows you to set certain things, and this is all documented. Again, this is going to take forever to run. This is all documented on Laravel Shift. If we go down to configuring Shift, you can see the latest Shift.rc file and what you're allowed to kind of configure inside of here. One of the options is to say default files. What that's going to do, and why it's important, especially for older shifts, is it's just automatically, anytime Shift sees a file that's customized and compares it to the core file and it can't match them up, it's just going to overwrite the file within the project. Again, this is a pretty aggressive setting, and it's why it's not necessarily enabled by default. By default, you normally get a comment that says, go look at this file and bring over your changes. But because I know no matter what, I'm going to upgrade from 5.8 to 11, I'm just going to save myself the trouble of doing all that manual, review of the file, and I'll do it once at the very end. So that's, again, just a little bit of a pro tip. You're able to do this yourself. There's nothing preventing you from doing this. Okay, this finished. Let's go ahead and add this real quick. So let's do a git add -u. Let's going to do a git commit -m, and we'll say adopt Laravel code style. All right, then the next thing I want to do is let's copy that .shift.rc file here, and I'll just cat this back out again so we can talk about it. So let's do cat.shift.rc. So underneath the Laravel section of configuration, I just simply say default files true. And again, what this is going to do is anytime Shift encounters a mismatch between a core file and what it's your file in your project while it's upgrading, while it's running these shifts, it's just going to default it. It's going to take the new modern version. And again, I'm okay with this because I know that I'm going to come back at the very end and bring over the customizations once instead of incrementally for every single version. That's just a pro tip. If you want to follow this, you can throw this code into a Shift.rc file and it's going to make Shift behave that way. I'm not necessarily recommending doing that. I do it, again, because I'm familiar with Shift. I know how it works. I know how to get the most, and I know that I'm going to upgrade to Laravel 11. If you're going to incrementally upgrade, run shifts one at a time, which is totally fine. I would not do this, is the point. So there's my disclaimer. Let's do one last thing. Let's do cat composer JSON. I did this kind of off stream, but again, this project has a ton of dependencies. Look at all these. I'm going to copy all these. They got a lot of custom dependencies. They got a lot of community dependencies. So I've highlighted this section. If I go back to Shift, this can I upgrade? I'm going to paste this in here, and we're going to run this. Okay, now again, I already did this before, but this is one last thing I would want to do. I just want to look at kind of general compatibility for these things. And I'm looking for, checkboxes basically. And right now I'm seeing all the checkboxes. Of course, Fidelber, no, the proxy one was abandoned. Shift's going to take care of that. That's no big deal. Guzzle, everything else is all good. Laravel Nova is an internal or commercial package, so it's not one that Shift technically tracks. I should probably tweak that, but really the X is just saying not tracked or unknown. It doesn't mean that it's not compatible. Of course, we know Nova is compatible in this case. All these Nova custom things are, again, custom plugins to Nova that they've created in their projects, so that makes sense that these are kind of warning us that it can't find what those are. The point here is that the only one that seems to truly be incompatible or abandoned in this case is this this Tech House Select Autocomplete. So let's go take a look at this. So out of all of those packages, the only one out of what, 60, 70 packages in this project that isn't being or isn't going to be compatible is this Tech House. Now again, just because it's compatible doesn't mean that there's nothing I have to do to upgrade it. There's probably going to be a lot to do, especially with things like Nova and Passport and all those first-party packages. But I do want to, if 10 of these had been abandoned or weren't compatible, that would be concerning. I might want to wait on the upgrade and maybe suggest to the team or the client that, hey, let's phase these out now because we know they're not compatible for the upgrade. That way we're not doing so much at once, right? We don't want to make an upgrade become a rewrite, right? You really never want to do that. It's a very common thing that developers do. Oh, we're just going to rewrite it. Or, you really, a true upgrade, in my opinion, a disciplined upgrade is one where you strictly focus on the upgrade. Get that piece done. Don't refactor anything. Don't use any new features. Just get the upgrade done and in production. That's where, that's what I believe. That's my goal. And that's what we're trying to do here. So I think we're good here. So again, we know that there's going to be this one abandoned package, no big deal. It might not even be used that much. We could go search the code base here in a minute, but I think this is probably enough. Let's go ahead and add dot, get command-m. I'm just going to say configure human shift. That's me. Just a little configuration for while I run this. And again, we're going to push everything back up to that Laravel upgrade branch. So we should be good to go here. Let's go out to back to Laravel shift, and let's go ahead and run a shift or two. I'm not going to run every single shift to 11. I don't think that makes for good video. You've seen me do this before, and I'll do one or two and kind of talk through the way in which I'm going to run so many coming from 5.8. So let's get into GitHub. I'll copy this for ease. We'll run a new one. Let's go down here. We're on 5.8. Now again, shifts are always forward looking. So from Laravel 5.7 to 5.8, that's not what we want. We want from 5.8 to 6. So they're always the next version that you want to go to. So in this case, we want to go to Laravel 6. We'll purchase that, plug this in, hit checkout and run. I'm going to add them to my plan. I have a subscription, so I don't need to pay. So we can just add this, and now we're just able to run. It doesn't even ask for the credit card anymore. So let's hit run. It's going to queue that up in the background, and while this is running, it might take a minute. It looked like a pretty big project based on Pint. Let's go ahead. I did this GWD, which is like PWD, but instead it puts it into the paste buffer. So now we can open up PHP Storm, and let's just go ahead and get this project set up. We're probably not going to look at that much code today. I think that's something I'll do again in the next stream. I'll probably do 2 or 3 of these streams in total. So today the goal is to kind of what I do to set up a project, kind of like for a successful upgrade. We'll run a couple of the shifts, and then I'll run the remaining shifts to get to 11, 10 maybe. I'll wait on the 11 shift. I'll get all the way up to 10, run all those shifts, and I'll start another stream, and we'll basically, once that stream's finished, we got a bit of an issue here. What happened? Oh, is it an org? I bet it is. Crap. What are they called? Oh yeah, I need to request access. Ugh. That might delay the stream a bit. Anyway, let's keep going here. What was I after? Let's get back in here. Okay, so we got this set up. Everything's good here. Again, here's all their kind of internal Nova things. That's why a lot of those packages weren't showing up the way we wanted. I'm trying to think of a quick way. The client will, they'll approve access, but I'm trying to think of a quick way to keep the stream going here. I could probably just push this up to my own brand or my own fork just to keep this going while we're waiting on the client to approve access via GitHub. So let's go do that. Let's do a git open. Again, you wouldn't necessarily have to do this yourself, but I am going to create a new repository, and we'll just call this Project Y. And private, of course. Let's create that. We don't need to put anything in it yet. What we want to do, though, is we want to do a git remote add jmac, and we'll borrow this for now. And let's do a git push origin. So yeah, just not to delay the stream, I'm going to go ahead and we'll shift our version of this for now. And this is actually, it's actually good that we kind of saw this. What's interesting here is that, you know, if you are waiting on an organization to give you access, GitHub has its own layer of restrictions for organizational repos. So if you've been hired to upgrade a repo or something, and you don't have that access, and you don't want to wait on that, you can push it to one of your own. Of course, make sure it's private and respect all the privacy for it. But the point is that to get around that GitHub restriction, we can actually adjust this to use our own. So I think what I was going to do is just go back over here and we'll run our own Laravel version. Did we push up? We pushed up Laravel. No, we didn't. Git push origin. Oh, I pushed origin. We need to push JMac. There we go. That'll change where it goes to and set. Yeah, okay. Let's get this back up there. While we're waiting, though, we should be able to do this and Laravel upgrade. Check out and run. It's probably going to complain again, so let's add this one as well. And as soon as that looks like it's up there, we'll rerun it. Okay, Laravel upgrade. It's out here. This should allow me to get past that restriction while we wait on the client, just so we can continue on with the stream. Once that proves out, I'll delete that repo and push this back up to their repo, of course. So we've effectively created a fork, but instead of hitting the fork button in GitHub, we've just pushed it to our own repository. That way we retain kind of the ownership rights and we don't run into the same issue, because GitHub knows if you create a fork that what the parent is, and it respects those. So we would have had to wait on client access regardless. But by doing it this way, we're actually probably running the shift in the background. So we'll give that a second. Okay, so we're set up in PHP Storm. Again, we're probably not going to do much code today. Let's just do a few more minutes, get this first 6 and 7 maybe run, and then I'll go do 8, 9, and 10 on my own, and we'll pick up the stream with the Laravel 11 shift and get more into the code at that point. But just so you get a feel for how I'm doing these, and kind of to that point while we're waiting, if you go into the Shifty videos, here's this upgrading old applications. This actually outlines pretty much what I'm demoing here in a nice little succinct 12-minute video. I mean, it's longer than my other videos on the site, but in 12 minutes I basically take a really old application, in this case 5.2, and I bring it all the way up to, I think, Laravel 9 or 10 at the time. So I run multiple shifts and kind of demonstrate my thought process of how I go those and how I kind of batch up the shifts to run. So if you kind of want the condensed version of seeing all that together, then you can check out that video. But for a little live action here, we're going to keep waiting for this to run in the background. Again, the project seemed pretty massive. I mean, Pint alone took, what, 2-3 minutes to run, so it's not surprising that this is still running. So we'll give it just a bit longer. Let's actually take a peek at the code. What do we have here? We've got, see, some pretty straightforward stuff. I mean, it looks pretty structured, conventionally structured, that is. I'm not seeing like, domain-driven design or any kind of module patterns here. Those aren't very common. People are pretty noisy about those patterns, but in the real world, like, not that many applications use that stuff. So, which is good in my opinion. I haven't, the Laravel structure that it gives me is totally fine. I don't know, I've worked on some pretty large applications that I've just never had a need to kind of reorganize it myself. Anyway, one more thing I want to look at is tests. They do seem to have some tests, so I'm curious, what the state of those is. Do they run? Do they not run? Do they all pass? So there's a lot of stuff here. Looks like a lot of random files in here too, so some workspace files, yeah. So we'll leave all that stuff alone. Oh my goodness, how long is this going to take? We'll give it another minute or two. I would get in the background and kind of see what's going on. Let's do that. We're going to take me off here. Full screen JMac here for a second. Whoops, that's not it. There we go. There's full screen JMac. let me sign into one of these workers real quick and see. Let's see what's going on in the background. So let's go to the main worker, and I'm just going to copy this. Okay, it's running. Oh, there's still it's finished Pint. Okay, how long did Pint take? I'm just curious, get a feel for. So Pint took 2 minutes to run on the server. So, and it seems like it's getting ready to run those again. Yeah. Okay, so in about 2 minutes, this will be done. Well, not even. No, it'll run Pint fast the second time because it'll have a cache. So, okay, cool, it's done. Let me fix this screen and we'll get back to it. All right, no more full screen JMac. All right, cool. We are back, and if we go back here, we should have pull request 1. Okay, so we've run the very first shift. We've done some preparation. Let's kind of get a feel for how I go through this. Now, again, this is a pretty large project, but notice because we ran Pint first, instead of seeing like hundreds and hundreds of files here, we hopefully have it down to just kind of what actually changed. That's still a large number of files, but again, this is a large application. So we do have some adopt Laravel code style that Shift applied. Maybe there were some files that missed. Maybe there were some changes Shift made that needed to be reformatted. Who knows? But let's take a peek at some of these changes real quick. Particularly the default config files, this convert, and then this default core files. So let's look at these real quick. Okay, so just opportunities to use class-based constants. This is just kind of a modern PHP instead of using those old school strings. Again, this was a Laravel 5 application, so at the time, you know, that was pretty common still in Laravel 5 to leverage those things. But now you really want to use this class constant. You get, you know, runtime checking from PHP. You get click-through completion, of course, not only here on GitHub, but in your IDE probably. So lots of places in the code that, of course, it found references to app code that could use the class constant. Shift core files, it looks like it just brought over new stuff here where things were completely default. So total safe operation to default those files. Leverage this home constant. So this was added in Laravel 6, this little home constant to make things easier. Instead of having a bunch of strings in your application, you can just reference the constant for the home inside of route service provider. So it just leverages those. Shift config files, basically anywhere a config file was untouched, it just modernized your version. The more important one is this default one. This is where it attempts to kind of do a three-way merge. So there are some things inside of here, for example, were they really using Redis or is PHP Redis okay? Was this just a legacy default value? Probably in this case, just being familiar with Laravel. But I would want to check with the client on this particular commit. This commit's important because it's potentially changing your environment or your configuration. Now, if you're leveraging environment variables, as I recommend you do, as Shift recommends that you do, you know, shouldn't be a problem. But definitely want to go back to this commit and look at it a little more closely. So I'm going to keep that in mind. Some old school input facades here, so it just popped those over to request, no big deal. And then finally, here's that default core files. So all of these files that we see here on the left were all files that Shift didn't match up. And if we go and look at the comments, it's going to tell us about these. But because I set that configuration option, it just overwrote these. So if we kind of look through just this login controller, we can see immediately that there are some things, in this case, it was extending API-based controller instead of just Laravel's controller. There are some things that it was doing in here that, you know, this redirection, all of these things got overridden. So again, another default type of commit that I want to be familiar with and remember when I'm on Laravel 11. So for now, again, just for speed of running shifts, I'm going to leave this alone and just keep going. But kind of these, in my mind, as someone who uses Shift a lot, of course, and created it, I want to keep in mind any commit message that says default. I want to give it, you know, a look. And I've been pretty consistent with those messages to say like default. And again, these are going to be called out in the comments. developers just love to look at code, so I just jumped to the code. We're going to go through the comments here in just a second. That's mine. So let's look through these comments. So we're kind of done. 11 commits, nothing too crazy here. Everything's pretty well labeled and atomic. But let's go back. We see here, Shift could not upgrade these files. You should compare them. Now again, I don't need to go compare them because I've defaulted them, but a normal user would kind of click over, look at that particular file and compare, you know, hey, what's in it that I need to get. So these 3 files. Now again, we've defaulted them up here in this, so I'm not going to worry too much about this. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. And to that point, my goal here is to kind of give this a first pass before I even look at the code. I want to take a look and address any like X comment. I want to you know, evaluate, do I need to take future action on these or is it okay? So I just deleted that comment because of the default core files that I've chosen to do. And because of that, I don't need the noise of going back and looking at that comment. I'm just going to go ahead and remove it. That's one of the reasons Shift leaves comments kind of as you can control, you know, kind of their output here. So same thing here, you know, Shift kind of use that home constant in these other files. I know that because I defaulted these files, that happened for me. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this as well. I don't need to compare these files. I'm not going to revert anything in my config files, but again, if you didn't like those config changes that Shift made for you, you can revert them if you want to. But I'm not going to. I like them. And again, here's those env variables that Shift sniffed out that are no longer the matching up with the default values that you may want to set yourself. So I'm going to leave these just for future reference. App name to Redis prefix. That's interesting. So someone was using app name. Considering app name is a legitimate env variable, this feels a little bit like a bug. So I am personally going to take a screenshot of that for me to just open up a little bug report. That seems incorrect to me. I'm going to delete the comment because it seems incorrect. Here we go. Here's proof that these got changed from a previous default value. So again, reading these comments is really important. I mean, I am, you know, arguably super familiar with the change log and how Laravel has changed over time. And even when we were reviewing that diff, I kind of was like, I think these default values changed, but Shift calls it out. There's no reason to guess. Shift calls it out in all these comments. That's why you really want to go through all of these comments. They're like a customized upgrade guide. It's telling you, you need to look at this. This is part of your application. We've detected things that make this comment relevant. Whereas if you scroll through the upgrade guide, especially older versions, there's a lot of stuff in there that may or may not apply to you. So take the time, scroll through these, read these, clean them up, you know, give them a thumbs down, thumbs up, whatever. So again, I have this comment above, that's enough for me. Okay, here we go. Shift updated your dependencies, so it bumped a bunch of stuff for us. These were upgraded major versions, and these were not tracked by Shift, which makes sense. These are all of their, I guess, custom packages, right? Private packages. So that makes sense. Because of that, I'm going to go ahead and well, you know what? I'm not going to delete this. I probably want to know that these two bumped major versions, meaning they might have their own upgrade paths. So I'm going to instead give this, oh, here you go. Those two are abandoned. So let's give these an I. Again, this is just my the personal way in which I use Shift. Okay, in Laravel 6, the update method of belongs to no longer provides mass assignment protection. So if you wish to preserve this behavior, you need to call the update on the model itself. Okay, so previously, if you were calling it through the belongs to relationship, you got no mass assignment or events. Okay, but now, if you call it kind of through, okay, that's interesting. So it found some places where this syntax may have been used and you might want to make it the new syntax. Okay, that's fair. Okay, the new will now cast any attributes. I think that's probably fine. I'm going to ignore that. I've never really seen that be a problem. Starting with Laravel 5.2, the input facade is no longer registered. Okay, so we saw that they were still using the input facade, just some legacy code there. Shift took care of some of that. I'm not going to be too worried because the fixer will automate that for me, and I'm going to run the fixer eventually. So Laravel 6 changed several of the core contract methods. Okay, so I probably want to look at this. Let's get that. Carbon 2, I'm going to be okay with Carbon 2. This is a little comment for us. Okay, this one, this is all in tests, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. Their testing layer is going to need some work regardless, so I'm going to get rid of that. It's rare that anyone's ever using these types of string keys, but again, if you were doing a certain key type, you might want to be aware of that. I don't think they were using these. I'm going to leave this though. This one's fine. It gets cleaned up in a later version. I just know that. And again, all these bottom comments are really going to get warned every single future shift, so I can clean them up here. So these last few comments are really just kind of encouraging you to keep going, encouraging deployment steps. They're kind of just guidelines to make sure that you check these things before you merge, kind of thing. And again, because I know I'm going to run the next shift, I'm just kind of cleaning up those comments for now. So here is what we are left with. What we have here are the environment configuration I may want to pass along to the client. So I've left that. We may want to set these, we may not. I just need to ask, are they using Redis? Are they using Predis or PHP Redis? Do they already have these environment configuration or environment variables configured? If so, then I can ignore it. This one's more for me because these were bumped major versions and because these are now abandoned. I'm going to need to take a look at those. So I've left myself some little I comments. The reason I'm leaving the little I and kind of going through the comments here is, again, I'm not looking at the code right now. I just want to keep running Shift. I know that I'm going to upgrade at least to Laravel 10, and because of that, there's no reason for me to get in the code and fix things right now. I'm just going to keep running the shifts, get everything upgraded, and I will go back and check the comments that I feel like apply to this application then. I do that for two reasons. One, if you go in and you start backfilling all your customizations to the config files now, and then we go and run the Laravel 7 shift, well, I'm just going to have to do that again. And then again for 8, and then again for 9, and again for 10. If I just keep going and allow Shift to do its thing, I get the most of the automation, and I save myself a lot of manual work because I just do it once at the very end instead of every single version. So, little pro tip there, just unless there's an X here that says you have a syntax error, you need to go change this, don't worry about it. Just keep running Shift, save these comments, and we'll look at all of them together at the very end, right? Once we're on our desired version. So I'm going to leave all these because I'm going to look at all these if they still apply by the time I get to Laravel 11. But again, they may not apply, so why waste my time now? I'm just going to go ahead and hit merge, and we're going to go run the Laravel 7 shift, and that's where I'll end the stream. So let's go ahead and delete that branch. Everything's merged into their Laravel upgrade branch. I'm going to go back. We'll refresh this page so I get my little meatball nav here, and Shift's being helpful. I'm just going to go ahead and run this next one. I've already merged it. It's all good to go. We're going to run Shift, and we know that this is going to take just a minute. So because of that, let's go do some other things. Let's get back over here. So we've got this comment. It's interesting that it said PayPal REST API is abandoned. Let's go see. It is abandoned. Did our little tool like miss? I wonder if Can I Upgrade missed that. Maybe I just didn't scroll down far enough, or maybe I missed it in all the noise. It might also be something that's just not, it's possible Shift just didn't track this, but it does have it listed here, so it should be tracked. Again, I'll have to see how much these two two packages are being used. Let's go do that while we wait. Here's how I would check if a package is being used. I really would just go in here, take a look at this, and it looks like their namespace is PayPal, it looks like. So let's go in our code, and let's just do a huge blanket search for PayPal / Okay, here are some things here. So let's kind of refine this and say use. Okay, there are 102 places where the PayPal API is potentially used. So I would say this package is heavily used. Let's go and hope that maybe they recommended an alternative. Okay, here we go. The SDK is deprecated. You continue to use it, but new features for alternatives, please visit. Okay, so I'm sure PayPal has their own. Yeah, I can look this up off stream, but my guess is PayPal has their own instead of this like additional, or no, that's under PayPal's thing. That's interesting. Well, hopefully they have another one. Let's go look at this tech house. Same thing. Let's go in. Let's find what they're using. Here we go. Tech house use. Let's do the same thing. And this is just a rough way to see. It's not perfect. It just kind of sees if we're using a package. So only one place here, it looks like a Nova field or Nova action is potentially using it. So select autocomplete. So this package, not so bad. One spot in the whole code, just a Nova action where they're kind of returning a customized field. So maybe, again, this is an old application running Nova, who knows what, Nova 1 maybe. Maybe a Nova 3 or 4, which is what we're going to. They might have their own, you know, Nova autocomplete, or again, maybe there's an alternative. So let's just take a look here. Nova autocomplete field. Yeah, select autocomplete. Okay, that's the one we were using. Yeah, again, Nova text autocomplete. There are others, it looks like. It just kind of depends. So again, I'm not going to worry too much about this particular abandoned package right now, because it's very possible the client or the application maybe doesn't even use this particular action anymore. So again, never let a abandoned package like prevent you from upgrading. Now, on the flip side, we saw that PayPal was used in 101 spots, 11 different files. So it seems to be this side of the application that interacts with PayPal is going to need an alternative, right? Or a pretty substantial change or wrapper or something. So I'm sure PayPal offers an API now. It just apparently is not this package anymore. So maybe they have some kind of unified package or a different way to do so. But that package seemed relatively official. So again, I just wonder. I wonder what they offer now, right? APIs, SDKs, REST APIs. Let's just see here. Oh, is that where we are? We are in the REST APIs. Interesting. Well, again, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. That PayPal abandoned one is going to need some love. All right, let's take a look at Laravel 7. It looks like it finished in the background. Okay, so notice that we didn't get any of the apply code style changes, so much less now, just 25 changes. And again, that's the whole point of why I just want to keep running Shift. If you do that, you're really just going to see very, very focused automation as I keep going up, 8, 9, 10. You're not going to see dozens and dozens of files changed, or hundreds of files in this case. You're going to get the very, very focused changes that are relevant to that particular bit of upgrade. So I'm just going to let Shift do its thing. I don't want to get in there and try to put Humpty Dumpty back together again, because I'm just going to have to do all those same steps again when I get on 7. So let's review these comments. Again, just informative here. I know most of these informative comments I can just ignore. If the client wanted to be familiar with those or something, I can leave them. But again, their goal is to be running Laravel 11. They're familiar with Laravel 11. They don't need to know that the exception handler changed in Laravel 7. You need to know as the developer as part of the upgrade. But again, that's not a big deal if our ultimate goal is to get where we need to get. Okay, little warning comment, so I want to slow down. Let's read this. Shift detected potential calls to Eloquent get original in Laravel 7. This now casts data. So if you need the uncast values, get raw. So I need to review these to see, should they be using get raw to preserve the old behavior, or is it okay to continue using the new behavior of get original? So I want to check those. I'm going to put little eyes on these again, just to remind me to take a look at that. Shift detected use of markdown templates, probably through Nova. So again, we're going to leave that comment. The mail driver environment variable was renamed. I know Shift does that, so I can delete this. But again, a warning otherwise. Again, I'm cool with Shift changing my configuration files. We see all those outdated packages, and again, the same abandoned packages. Fruitcake's listed as abandoned, but again, Laravel assimilates that, so that's not a concern, and this PayPal one's just going to keep complaining, so that's fine. I'm going to get rid of this though because there's not really any new information there for me. So based on the configuration, it did those defaults. Again, a lot of these are going to be informative. That one I'm going to keep. I saw some API. We saw a lot of API namespaces, so I'm going to keep this as well. There was a change in the way they output the dates by default in Laravel 7. So if you were just kind of using Laravel 2 array, or sorry, Eloquence 2 array or 2JSON, this could actually change. What I could do is go into the code and see if I'm doing anything like function to array, and just kind of do that in app. So we're definitely using to array here. So it kind of just depends where is that being used. There's a lot of places, but resources, so forth. So I may want to go check this. So again, I'm going to leave this because again, I know I saw resources. I know I saw API controller namespaces. So this is something that the application might be affected by. I'm not going to worry about the Symfony components. Again, they're going to need to be upgraded to 6, 7, whatever. So way back on Symfony 5, I'm just going to ignore that for now. Same thing, I'm going to ignore view, clear. All these are deployment kind of guidance for deployment. And of course, we're going to keep upgrading so we can get rid of that. So these are the comments I'm left with. Again, just 3 or 4 that may apply to this project, or do apply to this project, and I want to take a closer look at. Everything else, I either know as the creator of Shift that it already did that, or it was a loosely informative comment that, again, I know is going to be said on the Laravel 8, Laravel 9, Laravel 10 Shift, and I can just do that then. So this is really the name of the game. I just kind of keep merging the shifts. I want to go through them. You may go through them a little bit slower than me, but I want to go through. I want to read the comments. I might want to look at some of the changes and make sure that I'm on the track. But the point is that I really don't care too much about getting into the code right now. My goal is to be on Laravel 10 or 11. And because of that, I'm just going to keep running these. And then when I get to my destination, that's when I'm going to slow down. I'm going to unpack the car, so to speak, like sticking with that analogy. Like, let's get to where we're going before we unpack and pack the car again every time, right? Before we, change the code and reapply our customizations just to have Shift, change them back. Instead of just doing that dance back and forth, let's just get to where we're going, and then we'll kind of slow down and, review all of these changes at one time instead of doing it every time we run a shift. So I've said that enough on this, but hopefully you get it. That's the way I recommend doing shifts on old versions. Again, that's outlined kind of a little more succinctly in this Shifty video, upgrading old applications. So if that's what you came here for, to kind of get the pro tips, that video, just 12 minutes will kind of paraphrase everything I've talked about here. So with that, I think I will conclude today's stream. Again, my goal off stream is to run, just go back here, or we'll go back to my dashboard, and I'm basically going to fire off the run 8.x. I'm going to do that for 9.x, 10.x. I'm going to do all those, same thing I'm doing, go through the comments, look at the changes loosely, make sure there's nothing, immediate that I want to look at, some kind of X, some kind of syntax error, something in the diff that I want to go ahead and tweak because I know it's going to help future automation. But for the most part, I'm just running the next one and getting up to the desired version, and then we're going to slow things down. So that's what I'll do in the next stream. I'll slow down. We'll start actually getting Composer to run. We'll try to get the application run. We'll try to get Artisan to run. We'll start backfilling our customizations. That's where kind of the real work begins. Let Shift do its thing though. That's the main takeaway today. Like, let Shift do a bulk of the work for you and just go through them quickly. Run them, in tight succession, not necessarily go through them quickly, but run them back to back until you get to where you're going, and then you can slow down and kind of look at the code. So that's the goal. All right, thanks everybody for joining live. I will see you all same time tomorrow.